Is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil.
Good evening, welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live from our news about Desawe Kanda, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook. Also tonight, we're live on 3FM 92.7. Former National Signals Bureau boss, Kwabena Edobonheng, in double trouble as the Economic and Organized Crime Office, YOCO, rearrests and detains him over a fresh matter. We have the details for you tonight and also some reactions to it. Also, the Attorney General finally prefers charges against the former Chief Executive Officer and former board chair of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund in the matter of the Accra Sky Train that never was. Stay with us. The Ghana city is 60 years old. And this is at a time that the city has been named the best performing currency in the world for the month of April. We'll take a closer look at the performance of what we're seeing right now and the performance indicators for the city over the period and how the situation is going to be going forward. They talk about sustaining this. As always, you're an integral part of the conversation. Let's hear from you. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and on X. Let's get talking. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
Lawyer for the immediate past director of the Signals Bureau, Samuel Etechia, has noted that his client will not hold back on divulging national security matters to defend himself. Kwabena Edobonheng has been detained again after the Economic and Organized Crime Office rearrested him over new charges separate from his case before the High Court.
He has no choice, because why should a man be found guilty when he's innocent and when he's dealing with national security matters? So when a man is faithfully helping national security to have the sanity of the nation, why should he go through what he's going through? I thought national security will look into these matters and probably have a good conversation with YOCO and the Attorney General that we are treading on slippery slope.
The Accra High Court has granted a bail of 15 million cedis with two sureties to the former Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund CEO, Solomon Asamoah. He has pleaded not guilty to causing financial loss to the state, dissipation of public funds and conspiracy to commit crime. Also charged was director and board chair of the GIIF, Professor Christopher Ameya Ekomfi, for causing financial loss to the state. Governance expert Professor Bafua Jemandua says a country cannot be run without someone being in charge. He was reacting to the minority's concern over the absence of the President, the Vice President and the Speaker of Parliament as of Monday, May 12th. According to him, the absence of the three leaders was an administrative oversight which must not be repeated.
It is in fact a big deal. In all countries, constitutions make provision for the absence of the head of state or the president, because as you know, there's a saying, power abhors vacuum. Of course, I'm not anticipating any war between Ghana and any other country, but historically, that's the reason. In fact, when I realized that all these three individuals were out of the country, I was wondering why I haven't had any announcement. You do not run a country without somebody in charge.
Government is affirming its resolve to clearing debts in the energy sector, indicating substantial payments will be made by the end of 2025 or early 2026. Addressing participants at the Africa CEO Summit in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, President John Dramani Mahama expressed deep concern over the sector's debt overhang standing at a staggering 80 billion Ghana cedis.
We messed up energy sector with debts of almost 2.5 billion owed to independent power producers, to gas suppliers and everybody. And so what the previous government started it, but we're continuing it. They've been trying to renegotiate the debt and then see how we can ring fence it. We have some strategies for dealing with it. And I'm sure that by the end of the year, early next year, we should be able to make everybody happy, in terms of, dealing with that debt. We need to clean the slate, but in cleaning that slate, we must look at the whole value chain.
Pre-tertiary teacher unions are turning up the heat on government, calling for an urgent increase in education funding. The Ghana National Association of Teachers (NATS), the National Association of Graduate Teachers (NAGRAT), and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers say the current 15% budget allocation for education is simply not enough.
We are calling first on the government to make elimination of schools under trees a top priority by devoting a chunk of the GET fund to this worthy cause, ensuring every child learns in a dignified environment and is given equal access to compete favorably, be it in examination or the job market.
There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on 3FM 92.7, TV3 Ghana on Facebook, and as always, proudly brought to you by Flamingo Paint, Simply Superior, and also Sasso Spray and Coil, Kum Tum Tum Preko. Coming up next here on Ghana Tonight, Attorney General finally prefers charges against a former Chief Executive Officer and the former board chair of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund in the matter of the Sky Train that never was. Now, we'll tell you who these two individuals are. We'll reveal their identity to you. That's one of them you see on the screen there. One other person involved as a former board chair was not in court today. We'll tell you why, but the Accra High Court earlier today granted a bail of 15 million cedis with two sureties to the former Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund CEO Solomon Asamoah, the man you just saw his picture on the screen. He has pleaded not guilty to causing financial loss to the state, dissipation of public funds, and conspiracy to commit crime. Also charged was the director and the board chair of the GIF at the time, Professor Christopher Amir Kumfi, decorated politician in this country, also former minister, causing financial loss to the state as well. Now, the Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Justice Adam Sremsai, who was in court today, gave some detail to journalists after the court hearing today of what the next step will be. And the fact that indeed some persons have already started showing up with their loot, that they're returning the loot quietly, they want a plea bargain. They don't want too much noise about it. There are some reactions to it that if people are just returning their loot, then what's the deterrence in them if there's no punishment for them? We're getting to the minds of lawyers tonight on this matter. But Dennis Paberi-Wadam, Esquire, my colleague, is joining me in the studio. Let's get into the specific detail of the charges against these two persons on the matter of the Sky Train project that never was. Esquire, thank you for joining us tonight.
Alfred, always a pleasure being here. And Alfred, this has been long coming because a few weeks ago we were given indication that this was going to happen. The Attorney General publicly announced what his plans were in respect of this particular matter, so we knew this was bound to happen. He did indicate that the former board chair of the Ghana Investment Infrastructure Fund and then the former CEO were going to be officially charged. That has happened. I mean, charges are already. One has been put before the court today. And
so these are the two people we're talking about?
These are the two people as we speak. Professor Christopher Amir Kumfi, he's the former board chair of GIF, the former CEO of the same entity, Solomon Asamoah. So these are the two accused persons on the face of the charge sheet. Earlier today, the former CEO was put before the court. His plea was taken. But on the other hand, Professor Christopher Amewa-Kumfi was not in court today.
Why is
because
that?
we understand that he's indisposed. So he was not able to come to court. That was actually corroborated by the Deputy Attorney General who was in court. So matters relating to when his plea will be taken has been deferred to a later date. So in respect of whose plea has been taken, yes, one of the accused persons' plea has been taken. So properly we can call him an accused person. As yet, Professor Christopher Amewa-Kumfi only has been charged. He's not been put before the court yet. His plea has not been taken in respect of the allegations that has been leveled against them when it comes to the SkyTrain scandal or the Accra SkyTrain project.
So he can only be referred to as a suspect? For now? For now.
Yes.
How old is he again?
Publicly, what we do know that he's 80 years old. 80 years? Yes. So he's a relatively older man.
Yeah, I mean, he's a decorated politician, former education minister. He's done quite a lot.
He's gone through it.
But then again, his last position, publicly held portfolio, is what, you know, he's standing trial for now.
Yes, board chair.
The board chair?
Yes.
Of GIF. I see. But let's get into the detail now.
Right. When it comes to the specific matters of why this matter has become so public, controversial, is because of the fact that some promises were made, others thought they were just fantasy promises. But indeed, it was a project that was in the pipeline because some steps were taken to actually have what it has now become Accra SkyTrain. And if that project were to materialize, perhaps the traffic in town would be easy. People who travel from Oyaefa to Accra perhaps will just fly through the SkyTrain and be in Accra in no time.
Absolutely.
But that's it. Let's put the things into context so that people can appreciate what this, even GIF itself is and what's supposed to be doing and how Prof and then the CEO allegedly got involved in this whole web. Now, in 2014, GIF was established, and the principal object was that they were supposed to mobilize and manage financial resources just to invest in the infrastructure space. That's the purpose of this particular entity that we're talking about. Now, fast forward to 2018, that was when the New Patriotic Party was in power. These persons we're talking about were at the helm of affairs, CEO, board chair. Now, the Ministry of Railways Development decided to, because as part of the project to modernize transportation in the urban areas, they embarked on this particular project. They signed a memorandum of understanding with a company called African Investment Holdings Limited. Now pay attention to where these companies are incorporated. This one, we understand, was incorporated under the laws of South Africa. And this is our own GIF, which has been established under statute by our own laws to deal in this particular transactions. Now, the purpose for this MOU was to build an urban rail transportation system in Accra. That's what they call the Accra SkyTrain project. Now, fast forward to November 2018, GIF under this project was supposed to be the local development partner to this particular company. So the Ministry of Railway signed the MOU with GIF and this company on one side and the ministry on the other side. So that GIF would be the local coordinator, so to speak. So when it comes to Ghana, there were those who were going to do the feasibility studies, to do all the due diligence and all the work that is required on the ground.
Right.
Now let's see what happens. By January 2029...
2019.
Sorry, 2019. Forgive me.
No, you are in a hurry.
A shareholders agreement was signed. Now this shareholders agreement was signed between Africa Investor Holdings Limited, same name as the other one, except that this time, this was a company that was incorporated in Seychelles. So
there's a company that was incorporated under South African law.
Yes.
And then another one in the Seychelles law.
Yes.
So this is what has been described as a special purpose vehicle.
Precisely so.
I see.
And now that shareholders agreement was signed with GIF. Now this company was supposed to transfer 10% of shares it claimed to have in another company called AI Sky Consortium Holdings to GIF. In simple language, they said they have shares in another company which they would sell to GIF.
I see. It's interesting.
And this is where all the problem started.
Right.
At least on the face of the charge sheet, as has been captured under the summary
we are
facts of
dealing with
the Attorney General.
Registered in different countries.
Yes.
Under different laws. So there's a South African company, and then there's a Seychelles one,
which was supposed to be a local partner to GIF under the Accra Sky Train project.
And which one was registered in Mauritius?
We'll get there. Just hold your horse. So now this agreement has been signed. We are told that A1 in this context refers to a CEO. He was the one who signed this particular agreement for that transaction to be done. Fast forward, because that shareholding agreement was signed, and the agreement was that let's transfer some of the shares from AI Sky Train Consortium Holding to GIF. Now AI decided to request an amount of $2 million from GIF, and that was meant to pay for the 10% shares that had already been agreed on in the earlier in the agreement that I showed you.
Right.
Now we are told that the two accused persons, that's the former board chair and the former CEO of GIF, they jointly instructed bankers of GIF to effect that payment. This was the money that was paid, and this is the money that has now become a subject of this whole case. It is the Attorney General's case that nothing has been seen or heard about the money again ever since it was transferred, and that further investigations revealed that this money was paid without authorization from the board, even though there were claims by the CEO that he had authorization. There were no board minutes to that effect, and they could not find any authorization to that effect. According to the Attorney General, they also found out through investigations that GIF failed to do due diligence. Mind you, when I was talking about GIF being a local partner, as part of their obligations under the MOU for the project, they were supposed to do due diligence. That's, the Attorney General says that they failed at that, and that's the reason for which these two persons have been charged. They've been charged for 1, conspiracy to cause financial loss and intentional dissipation of public funds.
So the $2 million was actually paid?
Yes, so as it stands now, they say they cannot account
for the money.
I mean, that's the case of the Attorney General, that they cannot account for the $2 million. And that's the reason they're being charged for willfully causing financial loss and intentional dissipation of public funds. So that's the crux of the matter, how these $2 million got into the picture, how the Accra Sky Train that never was, and all the controversy surrounding it, Alfred.
I see, because this compendium of events makes it a bit convoluted in understanding, but when you break it down and make reference to these events and where these companies were registered, South Africa, Seychelles, Mauritius, and bringing all of it together, it creates a certain picture of how convoluted all of this is. But the Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Justice Adam Shemsai, has been speaking about this and what the next phase will be. And then stay with me. We're getting to what the Auditor General actually captured in the 2021 Auditor General's report about this SkyTrain matter. It also gives us some detail on what we're talking about right now. But this is Dr. Shemsai earlier today. Take a look.
By the people of Ghana. The rest, as to whether the company exists, whether there is any investment actually made, whether the money went to some people's pockets, whatever happened, the rest we would present them in court for the judge to decide, lest we are accused of, trying to try the accused persons in the media.
Finally, from me, your boss seems to be one who likes the idea of plea backing $2 million. If you're able to raise that money, is it okay for the state?
Look, let's be frank here. Our policy of recover the loot is simply primary. I mean, the first objective is to get the money. Because this country, as we know, has lost so much money through some of these decisions that public officials, some political, some civil, have made in this country. The primary objective of the ORA is to recover the money. We are open, and we cannot be tired of saying that we are open for anyone who, any of the accused persons or suspects in the other cases who think that they have the money and could return the money. We will be happy to have these monies to be used to solve some of the problems that we have in this country. Healthcare problems, transportation problems, salary problems, so many other problems that we have, sanitation problems. President John Mahama is interested in solving those problems, and we need money to solve them. So again, let me repeat that we will be happy to take any money that anyone has. And of course, the law allows us to have plea bargaining, which means that based on certain conditions and circumstances, we could vary the case that we put before the courts or the consequence of the crimes that we are alleging in court. So once we do that, and let me tell you, a number of people have approached us with offers, some including money being returned. And we have agreed with some of them. And some of them have agreed to be witnesses for us against some of the accused persons. So I think we are on track when it comes to the recovery. There's no better way of recovering the money than voluntary recovery. So if the people are willing to give us, we will take it. But that is not to say that you can keep the money and then serve jail terms and go for it, because there is an active process. The Attorney General has instituted an active process of recovering, tracing these monies. So I would say that whether you do it voluntarily or not, we will do whatever it takes in the name of the Republic of Ghana to retrieve every pesewa that we can from private hands and restore those monies to the people of Ghana and to the taxpayers of this country.
I think for the purposes of
by the people of Ghana, the rest as to whether the company exists, whether there is any investment actually made, whether the money went to some people's pockets, whatever happened, the rest we would present them in court for the judge to decide, unless we are accused of, trying to try the accused persons in the media. Let's be frank here. Our policy of recover the loot is simply primary. I mean, the first objective is to get the money.
You hear the Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Justice Adam Srimsai there. Then he says the first objective of oral is to recover the money that has been looted. But then again, there is that balance of argument that how would the process of recovery also, send a certain signal of deterrence so that it wouldn't be as though, yes, the ultimate objective is to recover the loot, but then again, people in public service or in public offices should be deterred from engaging in any loot, only to think that, after a period of looting, you just will be asked to return the money and walk free. But there's a provision in the law for that, yeah?
Yes, so you would hear the Attorney General talk about plea bargaining and all that. And usually it's a balance of what you want to get at the end of the day. I mean, like you rightly pointed out, they say Operation Recover All Loot. It does appear that their mind, it's on recovering the loot. So if there are people who are willing to return whatever it is that they are alleged to have taken away, and the Attorney General, they are of the view that, yes, this is how we can pursue the matter. I mean, and I think the Attorney General's department, they've been consistent on this, because when you hear the Attorney General himself speak, or you hear the deputy speak, they seem to suggest that, yes, they are out there ready and willing to negotiate, not just with people who are alleged to have committed some crimes, but even people who are willing or who have information to testify, but of the fear that maybe they may be victimized and all that. You hear the Attorney General say that he's willing to take a deal to protect such people. So, I mean, plea bargaining, it does appear that it's an option that they also want to adopt while they pursue this prosecution. And
I want to find out, that's why I bring in Christian Mwamhesi, he's a private legal practitioner. Thank you, Counsel, for joining us. I mean, yes, there's provision in the law for plea bargain where these accused persons will then just quietly return the loot and possibly escape punishment. For the many who are also looking at some element of deterrence, there's some concern there that if really I can just loot and my only punishment is to return the loot after a certain period, then where lies the deterrence?
Okay, good evening to you and good evening to your viewers alike. Plea bargaining hitherto was not part of criminal jurisprudence, but it came to being sometime in 2022. So the Criminal and Other Offences Act was amended to include plea bargaining. So, I mean, general education and the merits, demerits of plea bargaining is that with plea bargaining, breaking it to the layman, it is a negotiation that the accused person, albeit by himself or through his representatives, as legal representatives, engage with the prosecution team. So there are situations that it is not the Attorney General who might be prosecuting, but it might be other officers. So I mean police officers who might be doing the prosecution, as various laws allow delegation of Attorney General's powers of prosecution. Now, in that situation where such officers are involved, they must first seek consent from the Attorney General under Act 1079 to have plea bargain commence. Now, in involving plea bargain, it is to reduce the offense of the charge, to a lower offense. Now, this particular indication, it is also subject to the court agreeing to this particular lowered offense or sentence. I'll come there and explain further. It also gives room for withdrawal of a charge against an accused person. It also gives further room to reduce the punishment of the offense, but under prescribed law. Now, so it is a way to give the prosecution what they want, just like you said, that it is Operation Recover the loot. So the prosecution is minded of how they can trade, but that particular trade is within the perspective of the law. If that is done and it infringe on certain things which I would mention, then at the stage where it is over, the court may decide to accept it, as in adopt it or not. Now, the second part that viewers also need to know is that with plea bargaining, it allows for the prosecution, the accused, to willfully engage in the negotiations, such that at the time of adoption of the bargain, the court would ask the accused whether the negotiations which entailed in the agreement was done out of his free will, no duress, no promise or any other thing, and whether was aided by his lawyers, all of that to ensure that the person did it out of free conscience. Now, this is also because appeal does not lie from a plea bargain. Right. And so the court comes to a very conclusive decision that indeed it is not one that the accused was forced into or any other thing. Now, it happens because the accused is seeking to exchange the plea bargain with a full-blown trial. So when it happens, the other party, as in the accused, will have the consequence of jumping a full trial, which would lead to conviction and sentencing. I see. So this is basically what happened. And during the plea bargaining, there should be disclosures that would help the accused make reasoned negotiations. So disclosures would include the charge sheet or indictment, the facts, evidence, basically the evidence. So recorded statements, any investigative piece that prosecution intends to rely on. All these must be made available to audiovisuals and all of that.
So
now,
I just wanted to establish this. Is there any punitive measure whatsoever in a plea bargain as enshrined in law, as you are explaining now?
Oh, I mean, with the punitive measures, like I mentioned early on in my preliminary remarks, where the negotiations happen and the parties agree on what should be. So I'm returning AB.
Hello? I'm sorry. We lost that connection. We'll reconnect. But let me bring in Adam Senano as well. He's a co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Mr. Senano, appreciate your time. SkyTrain now, the Attorney General has preferred charges officially now against these two accused persons. A good stroke, you would say?
Yes, absolutely. The question on my mind is why it took so long. I mean, a case where monies were paid without due process, there was no board approval, as much as $2 million. I suppose I've gone into shares. We should have tried to retrieve that investment long ago. So it's a very good thing. I think we should have many more of these. So we begin to set that precedent, and I mean, people would then understand that whatever you do, eventually the law will catch up with you.
Right, and the law catching up with you is where I bring in that point that I was on with Christian Mamhesi, the lawyer, before we lost that connection to him. The point is that he says, yes, the plea bargaining is in law, but from the anti-corruption perspective, the sentiments that others express is that if the only punitive measure in a plea bargain is, for instance, to have the person who has looted state funds, so-called, just return the funds looted, and there's an agreement, you walk away, there's no noise, nobody hears anything. You hear that from the Deputy Attorney General, that already some people who looted state funds, so to speak, are reaching out, that they want to return the loot. And, well, they are having some agreement with them. How does that also play out in the call that others have that, look, there has to be some punitive measure to serve as a deterrent beyond just returning the loot that has been stolen?
Well, I mean, this is the international best practice. It's actually, we say prevention is better than prosecution. Basically saying that if you can find other ways of retrieving monies and assets without necessarily getting to have to throw some more good money into prosecution and spend many more years in court and deploying the best of your personnel, just trying to retrieve monies from one person and then be stretched. It's always in the best interest of the state that persons volunteer to give back whatever they've taken. Sometimes with punitive measures, so you pay some premium, some kind of fine in addition to what was taken, or they can come up with other forms of sanctions. So I think it's in good order. It's the best way to go, and that's what most countries will do. In any case, in this country, we've had people shot for corruption. It didn't stop corruption in Ghana. I don't think that the lack of deterrence is necessarily because you sanction people and that's it. I think the lack of this deterrent is the fact that persons so engaged are caught, are publicly, the word is name and shame, and the monies are retrieved. I think that tends to serve a stronger deterrent. And yes, what we are saying is it doesn't mean that the monies would just be retrieved. In many cases, the negotiations include paying a certain premium, which is in itself a sanction, because It's not that you just pay back the amount, or it could include other forms of, punitive measures. So I don't think that one should just conclude that we are just retrieving money and at its face value, the same amount as was, as it were, embezzled or fraudulently taken out of our coffers. That should not be the assumption.
Right. Well, I thank you for your thoughts on this. And Sedem Senano is a coach of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, also Christian Mamhesi, private legal practitioner, constitutional lawyer. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight on this matter. But this is a conversation that's not ending now. I just indicated to you that the Auditor General captured this SkyTrain matter in the 2021 Auditor General's report. Now, we have the specific detail in that 2021 Auditor General's report, as was captured by the Auditor General on this SkyTrain matter. Dennis, what did they say?
Well, so excerpts of that particular report indicates that we noted that the fund's risk management policy, which was initiated in 2017, is still in drafts. We advised management to expedite action for finalizing and approval of the risk management policy by the governing board. It continues to say that we noted that the fund acquired 10 ordinary shares in AI SkyTrain Consortium Holdings valued at $2 million. The feasibility studies, which will better inform the project economics and required approvals from the Cabinet of Ghana and the Parliament of Ghana, are still not conclusive. So if you follow the conversation, you'd know where this AI SkyTrain Consortium is coming from. We did indicate and how it has been captured in the summary of facts as presented by the Attorney General before the courts. They continue by saying that we urge management to continue to monitor the feasibility of the investments in the SPV and make the necessary provisions based on the outcome of the feasibility studies. So these are excerpts from the Auditor General's report. It continues to say that we noted that the fund did not have certificates of ownership for the equity investments in 3 companies, totaling 146.6 million Ghana cedis. We advised management to take steps to obtain the appropriate certificates for all its investments.
So, this GIF we're talking about did not have investment certificates.
Yes.
At
the time this audit was being carried on.
But so, at the time, the $2 million had been paid already.
Yes, and that's why they were advising them to take steps to regularize all those things. But indeed, that is a confirmation that indeed this amount of money was paid.
Good stuff there. Now, all of that you find on 3news.com. Dennis, appreciate you as always for coming through. This is Ghana Tonight. Let's stay a bit further on the courts because earlier today, that's coming up next, the former National Signals Bureau boss, Kwabena Duboahim, appears to be in double trouble as the Economic and Organized Crime Office rearrests and detains him over a fresh matter. We've got details for you. Then it's going to be joining me back because we will recall the earlier charges that the Attorney General preferred against him and what is happening now as we speak. Well, the lawyer for the immediate past director of the Signals Bureau, Samuel Atachia, has noted that his client will not hold back. And take note of this. He says Kwabena Duboahim is not going to hold back on divulging national security information to defend himself. Because you recall earlier, this memo that was leaked, his lawyer said, well, they didn't do it. It's unfortunate the memo leaked, but he is not going to hold back in putting out national security information to defend himself if it so becomes necessary. Kwabena Duboahim has been detained again after the Economic and Organized Crime Office earlier today, as we saw, the Attorney General preferring some fresh charges against him. But we're going to recall what the state of affairs was in the previous case and the charges against him and, that the Attorney General brought against him earlier. And Dennis, let's do that quick recall, these 4 persons that the AG charged in this Duboahim matter, and then we'll do a quick update on what's happening now today.
Yes, so before that, it's instructive to say that even though the Attorney General, not Attorney General, Yoko, has actually rearrested and has kept him in detention, he's yet to be charged on the new matter that's coming up, and that has to do with the Ghana Water Company matter. You recall the Attorney General did indicate that there was some matter in the offing. Yes, that has come up strongly. He's yet to be charged in that one. And that's, you hear the Attorney General make some comments as to how that will progress in the coming days.
Yeah.
But, I mean, by way of recall, you do recall that now they are in court because 4 persons have been accused to have some dealings to do with the National Signals Bureau, a transaction that is said to be shady, and all these people were involved. The first accused person being Kobna Edubuahin, the second accused person being his wife, Angela Ejibuathing, one Mildred Donko, a former banker who is also accused of having played a part in this, and then a company, which is Advantage Solutions Limited. You recall that even though Edubuahin was on bail, the Attorney General made an argument on the last adjourned date in court to the effect that they had picked intelligence that he was tampering with some witnesses. And because they were preparing their witness statements, they would need the court to detain him for 14 days.
Right.
The court did not agree with them to detain for 14 days, but they detained him for 7 working days. So having appeared in court today again, they had to reinstate him back to his bail conditions that he was already on. What it means is that effectively, he was supposed to be on bail. Unfortunately for him, that did not happen because Iyoko had another matter that they were dealing with him on, and that's the reason for which they arrested him and put him in detention. So the expectation is that, but before today, the Attorney General was supposed to file their witness statements and also disclosures. Our understanding is that that was yet to be done because according to the Attorney General, some of the witnesses had just signed their witness statements and they were getting ready to be filed. Well, so that's it for that matter. They are supposed to file their witness statements and their disclosures by 20th of this month. By 26th, they are back to court, and we'll see how that matter will progress.
But this is Samuel touched earlier today, indicating that there's some frustration for them, and that his client, Comrade Edubuahin, would not hold back in putting out sensitive national security detail in his defense if it becomes necessary to do so. Take a look.
They said they have another matter that they are investigating concerning him. So when he was supposed to have his freedom by their calculation, they released him midnight and then rearrested him on the basis of the newfound matters they were looking at. But the question is, in the period in which he had the freedom, why didn't they deal with the matter? And they'll leave it till midnight and rearrest him. Is somebody very excited, incarcerating another Ghanaian with all manner of tactics will aid justice, and that is unfortunate.
So is he in the custody of Iyoko right now?
He's come back to Iyoko, and I'm going there now for me to come to terms with what is the new matter, what is the new issue. You see, because he's been there all this while, and if there were serious matters of consequence, and he's on bail, huge bail, 80 million Ghana cedis bail. He's living nowhere. Edubuahin's name and that of Angela, they are all over the nation, our borders and our airports. They are going nowhere. So I believe that we should come clean that this is not a personal vendetta. This is a man that you believe you have some criminal case against, and give him space to defend himself. And give him also the freedom that now the Supreme Court has decided that there's no case which is not bailable, including murders. Provided always they will exact on you conditions for you to appear before the court to defend yourself. So I do not think we are going to rewrite the criminal jurisprudence of Ghana because of one man.
This fresh arrest, does it include the wife and the third accused person?
I am not sure, who are involved, and I'm going to find out from them what it entails, then I'll be able to address it.
Even though the matter in which he's being arrested for?
I've been hinted that it relates to secured internet services for the benefit of another state institution, the Ghana Water Company. That national security provided them with gadgets and well-meaning things so that if you are even in your room, you'll be able to see the pipes, whether they are not being tampered, because national security surmise that water is a national security matter. When your water is polluted, it will affect the entire nation.
So, Council, last week, a leaked letter that the Ibrahim authored was released in the public domain. How does that, from the details of that letter, how does that affect your case?
Well, it was unfortunate that it leaked, because the letter was intended for the National Security Coordinator, in which he was trying to let him know that where he is, national security matters are being raised. And, he should come to terms with it. That's what he was trying to do. He was not saying that he's afraid to defend himself, but he's saying that they are pushing him in areas of national security, and when pushed to come to shove, he has to defend himself. And somebody will turn around that why is a national security intelligence officer trying to bring into the public domain national security matters when he's sworn an oath. So you swear an oath, the national security will not come to your aid, so you go to jail. That would be unfortunate. It will be a tragedy that cannot be calculated. So that was the intent of the letter. The letter was not supposed to come into the public domain. He wrote to the coordinator, the successor national security coordinator, to look into the matters which, unfortunately, Attorney General and Yoko are pushing. Are they pushing national security matters into the public domain? And if he should respond to those matters, are they not going to turn around that he has breached his oath of secrecy and the rest of them? You can't slap a man twice. It's unfair.
Lawyer Tachi, are you citing secrets to defend himself?
He has no choice, because why should a man be found guilty when he's innocent and when he's dealing with national security matters? So when
says you can't slap a man twice. Ask the question, he has to go defend himself and put on a national security detail. He says, well, his client will have no choice if it becomes necessary. Well, we'll be having a security analyst join us after this quick break, whether we are treading on this slippery path and what can be done in this notice already that Atacha is giving of his client and the options available to him. Stay with us. We're back shortly. This is Ghana Tonight. Welcome back. Richard Commodore is a security consultant and a former Bureau of National Investigations, now NIB operative. He's joining us on Zoom right now. Mr. Commodore, thank you. Hearing the counsel for Kwame Dubois, Samuel Atachia, make the point in answering that question from a journalist that his client will have no choice than to put out sensitive national security information if it becomes necessary in defense of himself. How does that strike you?
I wasn't surprised at all to the extent that he's going through trial, and many of the transactions that came up in the first letter that was linked to the public have some items on it with descriptions that looks more like operational details. Then he might want to throw out some other ones that looks more confidential or to be described as what we call classified. The point really is as to whether those he's intended to put into the public domain will be things that will enable him to answer the charges at court will be another thing. But the second point that has to be made is that national security interested related matters have been dismissified across the globe. And we will have to wait to see which ones are coming up next. There are ways of dealing with those matters when they become public notice. And there are ways of navigating those files, particularly when people have been put before trial. So that is the way the standard procedure has always been.
Well, you hear his lawyer say that when he's found himself in trouble or he's going through a certain situation that his lawyers say it's not lawful in their view, the national security doesn't come to his aid. But then if he decides to go on this path of releasing sensitive national security information to defend himself, then he'll be referred to the oath of secrecy that he took, and that will be a breach of the oath of secrecy. I mean, is there any merit in that argument?
I don't know why his lawyer throwing those lines, but there are stringent measures that you have to go through to even qualify to become a supplier or a vendor to national security institutions, let alone becoming an officer of some of those institutions. I can understand the role politics play in appointing certain people, but if you go by the standard procedure, we took an oath and we believe in the oath we took, and we live by those oaths. And there are three things involved. One of them is the need to know. The other one is the need to share. And I believe his lawyer is aware that he ought to have known that once you took that oath, you made a commitment to live by it. But like I said earlier, many matters has come into the public fold, into the public domain, not just in Ghana, but globally. And national security issues can be demystified and they can be classified. The one that came out first was more like an operational something, but I don't know which one is coming, whether it borders on the confidentiality, let alone to be qualified to be called what we call classified. Irrespective of whatever they throw out there, he is appealing to authority. And Alfred, you remember that I told you that the institution he had not long ago, somebody had some issues in relating to national security expenditures, where the state believes that the expenditures were reviewed and accounts were audited, and he has charges to answer. It did not end well, and that person was put behind bar. He was only released on the grounds of on health grounds. And I think that young people and elderly people, irrespective of whoever you are, when you have opportunity to head some of these sensitive institutions, don't allow indiscretion and don't allow circumspection should be something you need to work around. These guys is calling the National Security Coordinator in the case of the NDC. In the case of the MPP, would have been the coordinator and the Minister for National Security. If it is proven that they do not sanction some of these transactions, it will be very, very difficult to come to his aid. That is also to say that when the state is against you, particularly when they believe that you have charges to answer, you will need a very strong hand of God to escape that. And it should be a caution to all of us within this particular space and the things we do publicly or privately.
But considering already that memo that leaked with some information that described as sensitive in there last week, which his lawyers say wasn't intended for the public, because it was addressed to the current National Security Coordinator. It's been made public anyway. Now we know what probably we shouldn't have known. I mean, looking at what was put out last week, what could possibly be the case in the coming days with this indication that he's giving, the prior notice that he's giving, that look, well, I'm already drowning. I'm going to have to launch onto anything to stay afloat.
Yeah, because if the target has been that they want to use it as a rebate or as a baseline to bargain against the state, it can be treated differently. One of the things you can also expect when we are talking about classified or classification, a top secret classified document, is that his institution has taken some decisions, whether he sanctioned it or somebody else, against certain groups of people or against certain individuals in this country. Knowing very well there is a known knowledge that the institution he had or he was made to be in charge has signed on to certain equipments and certain gadgets and certain operations which are part of the global practices that spies on individuals, particularly political opponents. Those could be something that may come up into the public space, but that wouldn't surprise anybody at all unless you are not aware of the institution we are talking about and some of the practices and some of the platforms they have signed on to. One other one that may also surprise people in the form of classification will be when they did certain favors to certain people they shouldn't have, or how he as a person has been influenced or his influence has led to certain decisions in line with politics, in line with certain privacy breaches, or in line with certain standardizations that wouldn't have gone the way everybody would have expected. Those ones would have raised eyebrows and say, oh, okay, so this is what this arm of government or this particular agency is being used or has been used or is being tempted to be used to create all manner of discomfort to certain people. But within the security intelligence community where some of us play around, some of them wouldn't surprise again. To the extent that our brother is planning the trial, they ought to have known that they need to know and they need to share is a very key component of their oath.
But what would be the, from what you said, what should be the appropriate measure of response from the national security apparatus because of this statement from his lawyer, giving the prior notice that, you know what, this could be a possibility if it becomes necessary that my client will have to put out this information?
Alfred, I don't know whether our brother's background has been checked before he joined. Some of us went through the strenuous process. I am a security intelligence officer. We are few across the group. But I can tell you competently that when you come against the state and you come in the line of national security interest or security intelligence line, and the state is against you because the state believes that you have a charge to answer, you will need a strong hand of God in order to come clean or to escape. I can tell you confidently that they will not come for your aid, particularly when you have not been kidnapped or you have not been blackmailed by a foreign agency. And even in that, once you cross the line as an intelligence officer or you serve in many of these institutions, there might be some charges for you. And take a typical example of the WikiLeaks and Snowden and many of the cases that have come out recently. Right. There has been some other ones that nobody is aware of. But I only pray that our brother and his lawyer will find a common ground in dealing with the state. Other than that, you need a heavy hand of God to escape.
I appreciate you. Thank you. And as always, Richard Kumado for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. We're back again tomorrow for another conversation. On behalf of the rest of the team, we do appreciate your company. My name is Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.